Next level. Next level.
Thank you all for joining us today. This is the Aspen City Council work session for October 9th, 2023. Just a quick note for everybody that we do observe Indigenous Peoples Day. However, the city of Aspen chooses to honor this by working. I know that's not how you wanted me to say it, but yes, we do acknowledge it. We do honor Indigenous Peoples Day, but it is not a city holiday for those of us that are in this meeting tonight. Tonight's budget agenda, we are going to be reviewing recreation, special events, community development, environmental health, police, APD, climate action, and renewable energy mitigation program. With that, we'll get started. It looks like we're going to start with the APD.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And just a quick cover slide. And sorry, what's happening up there? And just a recap of last week's October 3rd meeting and the one supplemental that we went over for transportation, and to see if there are any additional questions.
Not on that item.
All right, then we will move forward with police.
Good afternoon, Mayor Tory and City Council. I'm Kim Ferber, your Chief of Police, and I'm here today with Linda Consuegra and Bill Lynn, who are both assistant chiefs for the police department as well. Thank you for your time this afternoon while I present the 2024 Compass and Budget Report for the police department. We are a 41-member strong organization, and we truly do embrace serving the Aspen community. As our mission states, the provision of police services that enhance the safety and well-being of all people in our community is really what drives our team to remain steadfast in our service. Our mission is accomplished by strategically aligning both our short and long-term goals with a focus on positive community engagement. In support of Council's goals, I'd like to highlight a couple of our 3 meaningful projects that we just recently completed. This year, we added 2 electric vehicles to our fleet, and we also added 4 additional charging stations in our garage. These additions support our alignment with the community, but also our alignment with being able to expand our electric fleet in the future. Additionally, this year, the state grant wildlife protection, it says officer on your screen, but that is a civilian position, has affirmed the importance of our proactive initiatives. The department made a significant advancement in our human-bear conflict by really assigning just 1 person to focus on our education, our enforcement, as well as our prevention in this program. And then lastly, Sigma Tactical Wellness Program has really increased our awareness that police officers live approximately 22 years less than the average person. This awareness really helped us focus on our employee health this year. We had extensive medical and physical exams to help us better inform both our exercise and our dietary needs. Moving forward, I'd like to share a couple of our future goals with you. First, increasing trust and transparency. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. We right now are developing strategies, looking at our staffing levels, and really committing our resources to allow us to maintain our increased foot and bicycle patrols. Additionally, we are standing up a community bicycle education program that will allow us to provide additional information regarding bicycle versus pedestrian versus vehicle usage along our city roadways. And then second, recently I presented to all of you the project that we're working on in alignment with your goal number 4, customer-focused government, and that's our victim services gap analysis. The police department is committed to providing exceptional service to our victims, and we hope that this analysis will inform us on some areas of opportunity. You may have heard me say 41 earlier. We have 40 FTEs. However, we do have a half-time position that you all supported, and that is our evidence handling and process position, so hence why I said 41. I think you see here that the majority of our budget, about 75%, is allocated towards our personnel services. We have very few revenues to talk about with you tonight. We do handle over 800 both residential and burglar alarms that we monitor, and also we have revenues associated with CoA requests that come into our organization, mostly for body-worn camera and police reports. And then we also have, here you see it says POST, that's the Colorado Police Officer Standards and Training Board provides us training funding to supplement what we receive from the city for police officers specifically. And then also we are receiving some grant funding to help us fund our second HSO position. Here you can see that our operating budget for 2024, the request is a little over $7.5 million, and a little more than half of that goes to our patrol services. I am requesting your consideration for one supplemental request as an additional police officer, one position. This has an ongoing cost of $137,000 approximately. This position will be assigned to the patrol division. There's a couple things that I just wanted to know. We've had a couple opportunities recently to talk about mandatory overtime. At the update, I had provided you some numbers. We had over 630 hours of overtime. That was mandatory. That was at the end of August, if you will. And that does not include our special events overtime. That was at about 540 hours at that time. So while we understand and we realize we will always have those special assignment, those that mandatory overtime for special events, it's the mandatory overtime that can really put a strain on it, the employees. And so this is one consideration here for that. The other thing is that we are required to pull people from their critical assignments to fill in for these positions as well, and that is not included in those numbers I just provided to you. So, for example, in investigations, we have 2 detectives and a detective sergeant, and we require oftentimes for them to backfill into patrol prior to creating these mandatory overtime positions. So it really pulls them from their essential functions. The other 2 things that I wanted to mention is that there was a staffing study prior to my arrival in 2019. There was a recommendation at that time for an increase to the minimum staffing in the patrol division. And so that this would support that recommendation. It also supports our community policing model as well as our high visibility efforts that I mentioned here just a few minutes ago. And then also we do have areas where we are limited with the number of staff that are working. And for our employees' safety, and I also think to reduce liability, it's important for us to ensure that we have the number of officers that we need to meet those minimum staffing requirements at all times. Thank you for your consideration on that. Here we have an ongoing capital maintenance request. This is a little over $19,000. This will supply the necessary software to, for 4 years to run 5 VMS signs that we use here locally for a variety of different messages that we want to send out to the community. And this is our police summary page. And I just want to note that I got in the competition for the photos. And so from the discussion last week. But we are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, your photo of everybody gathered together outside of the gondola is definitely in the running.
Thanks,
so
sir.
Congratulations. Very well done. I'll put out just a general question and then see if the other council members, you know, we are extremely supportive of the APD. I think you guys do a fantastic job. And we trust that during these budget discussions that if there were any items that you thought that you needed or funding this, that, and the other, the like, that you would be forthcoming with them because we would want to hear them. So I just want to say that at the outset. So I trust that that's the situation that we see today and that you've brought to us anything that would be a benefit to your department because we are all ears for it.
Thank
So
you.
that's not necessarily a question, maybe a statement, but beyond that, I'm going to open it up to other council members. Council members, do you have any specific questions? I'll start with Sam.
I was just going to ask, with the police officer that you hope to add, I think you were saying this, but I just want to be clear, it will reduce cost from overtime because this police officer will not, will help reduce overtime created by other police?
It will. So this is, if this is somebody who does not have lateral, so they don't have experience coming to us, it will take time to fill that position. They'll have to go through the academy and then their training program. So potentially it could be next fall before we see a reprieve from that. But yes, absolutely. I do think that this position will help reduce some of the mandatory overtime that we're experiencing right now.
Do you know how much money you spent in overtime pay this year?
I don't have that in front of me right now. Do you have the ability to pull it up? Bill or Linda?
I think right now we're about 48,000.
48? We are, Linda believes we're at 48,000 approximately right now.
Okay. I just wanted to ask to, make it known that this position, it won't pay for itself, but it could help reduce costs on the other side of things. So thank you.
Yes, and if I could add one clarifying point, I do think it will also, I'm looking at some of the mandatory overtime that we have right now that's created by on-call schedules to cover some of this as well, and it has the ability to reduce that as well, and that's about, it's approximately $30,000, and that's different than the other overtime that Linda just mentioned.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, significant, thank you.
Bill?
Thanks for all you do. One question on income, which this is a curiosity. Is there no source of income from the county or something, since you're kind of doing their responsibility within the city limits? I don't know if that's unique to Aspen or not. I don't know anything about how that typically functions.
Sure. So under state statute, sheriff's departments by county are created. The difference is that a community can choose to self-govern and mandate certain departments exist. So I would double check, but I'm pretty sure the police department's required by charter. I'll look that up while we're sitting here. Even if it's not, the community felt for the level of services that it desired, that it created its own law enforcement agency to do that. And that is very common, particularly in home rural communities.
Thanks.
Ward, anything?
Yeah, on the overtime for special events, is that billed out to the people that are putting on the special events? Is that a break even or even a revenue generator? It's not listed as revenue, but are we recapping or recouping the costs of those events officers?
Yeah, thank you for your question. These are special events that are organized for the city's benefit, and so we do not recoup those. We are looking at a model for potentially recouping some costs if we were to help with some events that were outside of the city, for example, supporting the county at X Games, but that's not been determined yet.
Okay, so like 4th of July, that's just absorbed by the city as a cost of putting on the event?
Yes, sir.
Nancy gets billed for that. All right, thank you.
Wait, let me write that down. Nancy gets billed for that.
And do you have housing for the new patrol person?
Housing continues to be an ongoing challenge. We were very fortunate to be able to have 3 of our current police officers living in fire housing. Unfortunately, that's going to be ending in about, I believe it's 9.5 months now. And so we are focused on the 3 of those. And then we have some interest from others who are local, living local right now. Matter of fact, we have 2 that are in background who live locally here. And then we have another one who has applied through APCHA last weekend, and we're waiting to hear back on that one as well. So we definitely have some potential issues that we're trying to work through.
Yeah, I appreciate Sam's questions about decreasing or helping to recoup some of that overtime. So adding an FTE reduces stress and reduces the cost of overtime.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I just want to say I really like the photo of the fireworks on the hood of the police car.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, to clarify my comment, it is implied in the charter that there is a police department because of how it speaks of the police chief, but it does not require a police department exist. It requires a finance department to exist, but not a police department.
To be clear, I do not want to eliminate the police department, so don't infer that from my question.
Thank
What
you.
about the finance department?
Thank you.
That's a different story.
Thank you, Chief.
All
Thank
right,
you very
thank you
much.
for your time and your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on our agenda, we'll go to Special Events Department.
Mayor Tory and members of City Council, my name is Austin Weiss, and I'm your Parks and Rec Director. And we're excited to begin our first of the Parks and Rec and Culture presentations for budget tonight. And we'll have special events and rec this evening. And next week, we'll get into parks, golf, and the Red Brick. And kicking us off tonight will be Nancy Leslie with the Special Events Department.
Thank you, Austin.
So as Austin said, my name is Nancy Leslie, and I am joined by all my teammates tonight. So I have Andy right next to me, then I have Wessie, and I have Sam. And so we do a multitude of things. So Andy, you'll hear from the Recreation Department here shortly. Andy supports recreation, he supports parks, he supports open space, he supports golf, ice, trails, and of course, events through storytelling. And we're kind of reimagining marketing. We're starting to talk about it as storytelling. And so through the use of all avenues, everything that's available to us, but really focusing on photos and videos in social media, which this year alone, we've seen an increase in our viewership. Sam, right behind me, he does permits. And so he does special event permits, he does photo and film permits. If you want to use a park permit, he filters all those, so all of those sorts of things come through Sam. Then Wessie does all of our special events. And so we do 11 special events, whether they are in a partnership or ones we do all on our own, from July 4th to the kids' entertainment on the mall. Wessie does them, including our kind of internally facing employee engagements. We also manage the fun and the golf pass program and the volunteers through all of our events. And kind of as you heard from the chief just now, we're highly engaged in the strategic and emergency planning of our events also. So on a daily basis, based on what I just described, we collaborate or partner with basically every single department in the city of Aspen. I do believe APSHA is the one department we don't really interface with on a regular basis. All right, a couple wins that we'd like to take a look back and talk to you about. The park use policy launch. So we worked with the Parks Department and the Recreation Department. Really, we brought this to you. It's about a year-long process. And what happened was the special event permit or the special event application was really this catch-all for anything that happened in a park. So by clarifying that, really in our policies, through our website and everything, we've been able to kind of clean up how people look at a park rental versus a special event. Customer service training, we really brought in some kind of internal and some external help, and we focused on those employees who are maybe part-time or seasonal, so really recreation, golf, really kind of heavily focused there. Brought in some tools that were based in our core values from the city. And so kind of just created that building block. Customer service will be ongoing. We'll keep kind of upping it a notch, but we gave it a great foundation. And then the July 4th pedestrian only way is, I think, the one that certainly I probably am most proud of. So it's one that we really re-looked at how we did the logistics of the parade, and took us months, but it came together really within the last 2 weeks before the parade happened, and we were able to create a route for people, the ingress and the egress on your bikes, on your, using your feet, whatever, just not in a car, not in a bus. And that was on Hopkins Avenue.
Hey Nancy, how many bikes went through the counter at Hopkins, around Hopkins and 8th, Hopkins and 7th that morning?
I don't.
Who remembers? It was astonishing.
Yeah.
It was,
I think it was over 12,000.
yeah, it was, yeah.
It was a very
an
large number.
amazing, I mean, the use of Hopkins Avenue was just phenomenal. So, yeah, it was an amazing switch.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
It's that microphone. It's the switch on that microphone. If you want to use the other microphone, great.
We strive to incorporate the city values in our daily work, but I believe we are strongest in the partnership and service area. We believe we contribute to being a safe and lived-in community of choice and community engagement by offering platforms that contribute to the mind, body, and spirit, basically the Aspen philosophy. We're part of the, your kind of community building and health, your council goal through our various events. Many of our events are free and open to the public, and those participation-based events are see a great number of locals. We try and keep those entry fees low to encourage that. So, coming kind of to our focus of this coming year, based on conversations we've certainly heard at the council table and we've had with Sarah, we're really taking a big look at pushing our community events to the forefront, really making them our biggest focus. So we kind of tiptoed into it a little bit this year, and we feel like we'd like to really make a much bigger impact next year. So for example, we brought back mac and cheese. We rebranded it Mactoberfest, and we had 10 restaurants. We served about 10,000 single servings of macaroni and cheese and 3 kegs of beer in 2 hours. So we think by any metrics, that was probably a pretty big home run, and we're very excited to bring it back. And so we're really kind of taking that as our foundational, and we're looking forward to next year. The winter kickoff last year was new. We held it at the Wheeler with the Pete McBride Seeing Silence book. This year, we're also going to host it at the Wheeler. We're sticking with the same time frame, kind of right around Thanksgiving, when we feel like the tourists have, they've come for Thanksgiving, they've left. It feels like it's more of our community again. And we're going to do a kind of community talent show. So far, the response Wessie has gotten from the entities that she's reached out to is they're very excited. So we're really looking forward to, inviting the community back to the Wheeler. We're going to have hopefully some other fun things along with it, but we're not quite ready to announce that quite yet. Yep.
I have a question
Yep.
on that, if I could now.
Sure.
Firstly, thanks for all you do, and I don't know if you were at the meeting where right after Mac and Cheese or Mactoberfest, when I was just so excited about how that went and so excited for it to be back, so thanks. My question is, how much interest do you get from the private sector on doing events like that in our parks, for example? Like, do we get people that reach out and say, I want to do an Oktoberfest in the parks or on the malls or something like that? We don't have a ton of that. Obviously, we have Palm Tree Festival, which I'm excited is coming back. But how much interest do you get in that? Why doesn't more of that happen? You have a relatively small team. You can't do everything. And I think the reason I ask this is because I think the impact of these events is huge for our community and really great. And I would support more of those type of events. So, curious if you're getting that kind of interest and we can't accommodate it or we discourage it or what, I don't know.
So free and open to the community, we never discourage. We embrace that. And actually, Mactoberfest was brought to us as an Oktoberfest idea from one of the restaurants that just couldn't pull off an Oktoberfest. So we said, how about if we make it Mactoberfest? So, there are kind of those partnerships where it's like, well, you can't quite get to where you're going, but maybe we can help you. And if we do it, then it's going to be free and open to the community.
So real quick, to be more specific, that free is a key part, has been council's policy when these requests come forward. And secondly, that it's not a marketing or a brand launch. So that the public's assets are not being used to market a specific for-profit product. So we get it from beverage companies constantly. I mean, I hear appeals from those probably once or twice a year where we're just like, not the purpose of the park to launch your product. You can rent private venue space to do that.
So what Sarah just described, the for-private, exclusive use or to launch a brand or something like that, we do get quite a bit of those. But just kind of the free and open to the public with no real agenda other than having fun, fewer and far between.
Got it. I personally don't think everything needs to be free, to use a city asset, and, you know, obviously understand we don't want to launch a new vodka company in the park. That's not tremendously beneficial for the community, but if someone were to do a great Oktoberfest event and ask us to use one of the parks, and, you know, I understand it does compete with some of our existing businesses, but some kind of special event that really brings people together and outside when it's nice times of year and things like that, I'm certainly open to that, and I don't have a expectation that everything should be free personally. You know, I'm not speaking for everybody here, but I wouldn't want to discourage things like that if they do come in front of us, so that we can expand on these types of great community events.
The only thing we discourage is exclusive use.
We will come back to this at the end of the presentation, because that's kind of policy direction. We've had conversations about this, but I want to get the council to weigh in, so we're actually going to revisit that at the end.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so lastly, we continue to work with our large impactful events kind of year-round, so that we help kind of understand where their challenges are. They help understand where we're coming from, and really kind of streamline that process. We're also working kind of to Kim's, to really almost to your question, Ward, there's a group of the emergency services kind of providers, so to speak, in a group, and we are starting to take events and evaluate them strictly based on kind of the emergency services that are being provided and what we want to ask of events in the future. All right, so there are 4 of us, and we do a lot, just the 4 of us.
4.5 of you.
Not quite.
So, we don't really see the half. So we have our event application process brings in some money. The event logistics brings in some money, and then our expenditures, you know, as we talked about, the, you know, 4th of July, these free and open community events are really where we spend the bulk of our money. Again, we want to really kind of focus on more community-minded events. We do not have any supplementals, and we do not have any capital projects.
That's a lovely presentation. Before we get to questions, I'll start off. First of all, I want to say, with the Mac and Cheese Festival, if I'm not mistaken, it was started years ago by a gentleman named Keith Bullets. And so I just want to take a moment for all of us to remember Keith and our appreciation for him. And he was a city employee as well, but beyond that, a community member. And he really kicked this off just because he thought it would be a fun day. So thank you for bringing it back, and you did a great job with it this year. But honor to Keith as well. Question for you about the winter kickoff. The event that we did with Pete McBride was kind of coming out of COVID and wanting some togetherness. We could all get together again in the Wheeler. And it contained elements of some environmental speak that he was doing, community togetherness, mental health awareness was also part of it and such. Is that in this? Is that kind of the same vein moving forward? Not to hit on those 3, but just it is an effort to bring the community together pre-winter, post-summer. Everybody good? Let's get going again?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, same theory again. I don't really want to say too much publicly because we haven't gotten these commitments yet.
Yeah.
So, but just know that that is absolutely the same direction.
Not a problem. I think last time it was a full house. I'd probably expect the same. So, awesome. Palm Tree Festival, Bill just brought that up, but I was wondering, we had an agreement with them in their first year, which was to provide a community amenity, and they did so by doing a concert on the 4th of July. Are we still working, are you working with them in order to maintain that relationship?
Yes, and they've indicated that is what they want to do again.
Awesome. They did a wonderful job of that last year. That concert was a really neat added bonus to the 4th of July festivities. A A lot of locals out there enjoying it. Great choice of the motet. The one issue that might have been there was the placement of the stage is tough because that time of day the sun is right on them, and on 4th of July it gets warm, just to mention. And then I did want to bring it back to what Bill was just talking about, and I had some one-off conversations with Nancy just in passing on the street about increasing partnership. And making our dollars go as far as they can in the event space. So kind of what Bill was just alluding to is the conversation that I've also had. So just, you know, for head nods, if you will, or, you know, is that kind of policy that this council does support? Is that role as our events team being in partnership and supporting others? And that can take many different shapes and forms, but just wanted to give council members the opportunity to say, like, yes, that is what we're looking for going forward. I say this because our events team is in a different space than they've been probably ever. The changing face and nature of what we want out of our events, it cuts that fine line between what we pay for, and this is general fund dollars. And not few of them, it's a lot, but, you know, we recognize the benefit to our community. So, you know, our events team needs to hear what our city as an organization, our community want from them, because they're in new space that they've never been in before, and doing a great job, but just, I think that they could use all the support and guidance that they can get. So anyway, those are my comments. Others, if you have questions or comments, you can also just put a nod towards that partnership idea or not. That is up to you. Sam, I got a hand up from you. I'll go to you first.
Yeah, thank you for, I think you said 11 events, right? And I'm pretty sure every event is as successful as the next, so that's always nice. And with that, I was wondering, do you feel like 11 is your capacity, or could you do more events?
We're beyond capacity.
You're beyond capacity.
We passed capacity.
Okay, because my next thing was, I love this article from Oliver Sharp back in June about the art cart derby that didn't last long but went down Aspen Street, and I think with the redevelopment of Lift 1A and our arts and culture grant funding that we potentially have, I think it would be a really cool thing to bring back the art cart derby if it wasn't such an insurance liability.
That was the issue.
No, I know, but I kind of just like wonder if you can, like, if our lawyers aren't here tonight, but if you can sign enough waivers, I feel like there's enough people in this town that would absolutely do it. And on that note, with the art cart derby, you know, I'm a big history buff, and I was wondering, are there other events that Aspen has done in the past that we could bring back?
Galinda Sprung.
Well, like, I just think there's a lot of opportunity with nostalgia here, but I also think the art cart derby is really fun debauchery that really epitomizes Aspen in a really fun way, especially down Aspen Street. I know that would rile up a very fun crowd if we can do it again, so.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people remember this, but there was an art cart in the Hotel Jerome bar for years up on that high shelf.
Little soapbox derby.
No, I know there's a lot of barriers to entry, especially the insurance side of thing, but if it can happen, here's a formal setting where I'd love to see at least some exploration to explain to me why it cannot happen, at least. So thank you.
The more you work with Nancy, the more you'll be able to read her. Her face right now is saying, yeah, we know. We read the article and we are looking at it.
We,
You don't have to say.
well, no, I was going to say, as a team, we love to look at the historical stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, the conversations, we call it in the cabin. The conversations in the cabin are very, you know, what happened back then? As you said, the debauchery, you know, how can we bring back that spark and that fun? So, yes.
So you're looking into it as much as one can with the, okay. All right, well, hopefully I hear about it again at some point. Thank you.
You will.
All right.
You will. Howard?
Yeah, I wonder if it'd be possible for you to dig up where we had the fees and policy discussion for the parks. It showed how many parks we have and how many events, and I think for Bill and Sam, that would be helpful, that those parks are engaged quite a bit, and there are fees for for their uses and guidelines for what they can be used for. And if you could just dig that up and make it available, that would be good insight.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, Glendisburg, ski touring.
My brother-in-law broke both his ankles jumping the Glendy. That's one of the reasons it's not happening anymore.
And that's another event that I've talked to Nancy, you know, when we have snow polo down there, they get the field all prepped, and I was like, hey, how about some ski joring, just make it track, but the carnage is pretty rough.
They make ankles much stronger these days, so it's all
That's
good.
true,
We can bring it back.
and replacements.
That's right.
John, any questions or comments, events?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm really appreciative that your department got through the park use policy. I think that really helps the community. As far as clarity, I thought the 4th of July was incredible. Having those streets free of cars was eye-opening. I'd like to see that happen more often than just 4th of July, but anyway, thanks for doing a great job.
One more thing. The picture on page 14 is my favorite. The little girl with a hot dog.
Yes, I agree. What a smile, pure joy right there.
Andy's the photographer. Oh, you didn't take that?
We put
You
this
didn't have to
together
be so
for the
honest.
community picnic. I can't take credit.
He did take the police photo, though, that you like.
Nice.
And a bunch of others.
That's an award winner.
Sounds good. I'm all good, but thanks again for all you do.
One more. Sure. When I lived in Dunedin, New Zealand, they have the steepest street in the world, and they had a Cadbury factory where they used to roll like chocolate balls down it too. So if it can't be a roller derby, I think doing something with the steep streets, like rolling a bunch of chocolate balls down it for the kids, would be really fun too. It's like a duck derby except on steep pavement. So.
I think Sam's looking for a voluntary position on special events.
I just think there's a lot of opportunity there. We have gravity on our side, and there's a lot of fun things you can do with it.
We could do one of the what's that cheese wheel roll they do?
Oh, yeah. See, now you're thinking right.
Yeah, man.
However, giant dice they rolled down the super pipe during X Games.
Or they have like a wife carrying contest somewhere where you get your wife's weight in beer if you win. So
All
Wheelbarrows.
these.
yeah,
All kinds of options.
I think we get the direction.
more debauchery.
Let's have fun.
I think we hear you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Leslie and Sam, thank you to you guys.
Next up, we've got Desiree Whitehead with our Recreation Department, and we'll see how much debauchery she brings to the table here
Oh my gosh,
today.
those are big shoes to fill and big pictures to fill too. Like Austin said, I'm Desiree Whitehead. I'm the recreation manager. I'm thrilled to be here tonight to talk to you about a vibrant City of Aspen hub that fosters a sense of belonging, encourages active lifestyles, and embraces diversity. Our mission at the rec department is small and simple but profound. It's to create an inclusive and welcoming environment that brings community members from all walks of life. Within our 3 facilities and over 212 programs, we are committed to providing an array of programs and amenities that cater to the unique interests and needs of our community. We also actively collaborate with local organizations and community partners to expand our outreach and impact. So some of our wins this year are we took a look at all of our facility uses over the past year and tried to put some creativity and thought into some reutilizations of our spaces. So at the Red Brick Gym, on the bottom one, we are going to be installing a kilterboard climbing wall. A kilterboard climbing wall is much like a golf simulator. It simulates a climbing wall. It's an app that set routes of all abilities and can be used to compete with people all across the world. This will be a new addition. They'll be installed on the climbing wall over onto the side that used to be kind of an office space and a workout facility, and now it is going to be the kilter wall. We've not done anything to that wall in over 10 years, so we're excited to be able to give the climbing community something new to look forward to. One of our community partners is the Aspen School District. This last year, we were able to bring back the swim lessons that happen once a month for our K through 4th graders during their gym classes. And actually, this week is their swim week. So our facility is full of K through 4th graders coming over to take swim lessons. This program is really is teaching a life skill that's important to developing our youngest residents. And for some kids, this is probably one of the only times they'll get a lesson, believe it or not, even where we live. Another great partnership with the Aspen School District is that many of you may or may not know that we have had a lifeguard employee shortage over the nationwide, and Aspen hasn't been any different from that. So we've been able to partner with the Aspen High School to offer a lifeguarding course in their spring semester. This just gives those high school students an opportunity to get some class credit, to get a certificate, and then to be able to offer the community and potentially even work for us. So it's been a great thing for us. Also, kind of looking back at our facilities this past year, this spring, since our winters are so long here and lovely, we and our programming at the Ice Garden ended in the beginning of April. We were able to open up the Aspen Ice Garden for soccer and field hockey. So when they were either had poor weather or they were waiting for grass fields to melt, we were able to let them have a house at the Aspen Ice Garden. So that's a great place. One of our highlights, Compass highlights, is this goal highlights our city value of stewardship. And for recreation, this really is financial responsibility. Our major project with this is our 5-year business plan update. As part of our agreement with our advisory committee, we have to update our business plan every 10 years, and this was due to expire in 2025. But last year, with your guys' support, we were able to move that up to 2023. So we're working with Pros Consulting currently, doing a review of that. Some of the work that's being done is they're doing a review of our current operational delivery model. They're conducting inventory and evaluation of our existing recreation programs, services, and the budgets that are associated with them. They're conducting a survey to identify the community needs, and based on those results, the consultant will do some comparing and analysis of current programs, potentially to identify some expansion areas or maybe some contractual where we have to contract. The final product the consultant will be giving us will provide some data-driven recommendations, implementation strategies, and some action plans. And we look forward to bringing this this updated business plan to you guys at a further business session.
Desiree, how's your response on the survey so far in terms of people
So far,
filling it out?
I think as of last time that I looked, we had 350 so the first survey that went out has 27 questions, which is a little long. And we had 350 participants, which is a statistically valid survey. And then we just sent out last week a more simplified version of that can be picked up by a QR code, and I believe it's about 10 to 15 questions. And so they'll kind of take all that info.
I think I started on the 27 one and got distracted, and I was like, I don't know that many people will submit this, but I'm glad you got 350. That's great.
Yeah. Our second goal here is highlights city values of service. Recreation takes pride in providing service to our community through fun and safe facilities and programs. The action plan revision project will involve a comprehensive review and update of our existing emergency action plan, really just incorporating the latest industry standards and best practices aimed at being prepared and responsible for our facilities as we in potentially facing emergencies. With the ever-changing environments, with the schools right across the street from both the red brick, with the elementary, with the yellow brick, and then across, of course, the school district campus, it's important that we have up-to-date plans and that our staff are all trained and ready to go. Our facility resource evaluation project is focusing on optimizing the utilization of our organization's resource. So really a thorough assessment of our physical assets, our equipment and infrastructure, and identifying how those can be used in case of emergency situations within our community, such as a wildfire or something else, and how recreation can be used for those to help support. The safety trainings, much like we project is dedicated to promoting the culture of safe and well-being among our personnel and the community. We offer CPR classes for adults, children, and even pet owners. We do offer lifeguard trainings for the community, and as some of you may or may not know, our aquatics team did take first in the Colorado Parks and Recreation Association's lifeguard games last July. So this just speaks to how important training and safety is to our department. Our third and final goal is highlights the values of service and partnership. As Nancy spoke about customer service, this project is designated to elevate our customer service standards by providing a comprehensive training program. So putting our staff through interactive workshops, also partnering with the police department and doing a de-escalation training, different ways that which we can equip our staff, our team with the necessary tools to handle various customer interactions, and so that we can be consistent with all of our customer service. Our marketing plan aims to drive strategic growth and brand visibility. This project really will take an involved, thorough analysis of our business plan survey and see where from the results to see market trends, customer behavior, and competitive landscapes so that we can formulate a comprehensive plan. So really combining our business plan and our marketing plan together to really just drive our business. The recreation department consists of 28.25 and tons of part-time labor. We really rely a lot on our part-time labor. 20 of these FTEs are directly support our facility and operations of our programs. The other 8.23 is a portion of our business service, maintenance, and admin team. So we are currently forecasting $2.4 million in revenue, and this is going to be reaching back to where we were before the pandemic. Our before pandemic in 2018, we sat at 2.3. In 2019, we sat at 2.5. So as you can see, our revenues are, our non-classified is our memberships and our daily admission. These are big buckets. And then ICE facility rentals and programming is our second. With revenue comes expenditures. So we are forecasting for 2024 to be about 5.7 in expenditures, which is a cost recovery of about 42%, which is tracking to our previous years as we've been coming out of COVID. Last year, we hit that 43%. In 2018, we had 4.9 in our expenditures with a cost recovery of 47%. And in 2019, we had 5.1 million in expenditures with a 49 cost recovery. So even though we're getting back to where we were with revenue, expenditures have still had to increase, which decreases our cost recovery because of utilities and the cost of staffing. So as we still see that we are not reaching our 50% cost recovery. However, as we finish up that business plan, we will be requesting a work session with you all to discuss the policy. So to meet these revenue projections, we are looking to increase our daily admissions by $1. So that's the adult local and the guest local, or the guest adult are up there on the screen. We also are looking to increase our memberships and program fees by 4%. And then we strive to keep these programming affordable for all community members and have been able to increase our scholarship funding this last year to help support those that potentially need that extra help. We would like to reach out and say thank you to the Aspen Elks Lodge for supporting our scholarship fund for our youth camps. They're a big contributor to that. And then we're looking for a supplemental to cover those increased in utilities for $35,000. The utilities have increased over several years, and we've been able to absorb them with our part-time labor savings that we've had because we haven't either been fully open or fully staffed. Now that we've been fully open and we're getting closer to staffing levels, we need to adjust our budget authority to the actual costs. Okay. And then we are 0.3 of an FTE authority will go from us to golf, and this is to help support the golf year-round operations. And Jim will speak more to this when he comes for golf. And then we have several small capital projects and one ongoing maintenance project. As you can see here, some of our larger projects that you will see, we'll look forward to reviewing with our Parks and Open Space presentation next week. So in closure, the Aspen Recreation's commitment to inclusive community connection is not just, it's just not a slogan for us. It's a guided principle that permeates in everything that we do. We're really looking forward to providing opportunities for our community to connect in a fun and healthy ways in 2024. That's all I got for you.
All right, let's start this way if we can. Anything from you, Bill?
Sure. Great job, Desiree. Thanks for all you do for the community and team. I do recall we approved a re-roof project for Lewis Ice Arena, but that hasn't started yet. Did that have to get shifted to 24?
No, it's completed. It's been completed.
Really?
Yep. They completed it,
That's
actually
amazing.
on time and done, so.
Good. No, I didn't even notice, so good job.
It did not
not
affect
supposed
any
to.
of our operations, which is awesome, which is really great, so.
Great. And the buckets with hoses are gone?
They are gone.
Wow,
You're
good
gonna miss
job.
them
That
when
I
you,
haven't
when you
noted.
come play hockey, I know.
No, I think it's great. And, one other thing I was curious about is you talked about our long winter season, and I know youth sports in our community suffer because kids have such a short season and can't practice. Have you as a department ever looked at ideas like bubbling Iceland or creating some kind of indoor practice space for the youth in our community?
Yes, that is actually part of our bigger master plan that we will be bringing to you guys at a later date also.
Great.
It may be of benefit for the new counselors to pull out, reissue the materials from, is it 2 years ago, Scott? About a year now. We were asked at that time by council to not advance any major changes to the recreation facilities based upon other priorities in the community. So it was a much more in-depth look than just the two projects you mentioned. It was taking a look at ice sheet locations, about the utilization of the red brick and how it's functioning, that might be of benefit to reissue.
Yeah, would love to reread that and look forward to learning more. Thanks again.
John?
No, keep doing a good job. Thanks.
John supports recreating.
Yes, I do.
I just wanted to clarify that your department is everything inside the rec center, red brick, and ice garden, and nothing outside of those facilities? Or like, where's the line blend with Parks and Rec versus just what budget?
So we do anything with programming. So we do like the kids soccer game, soccer stuff like that on the fields. So anything that's programming that we're putting staff on there. The Parks Department takes care of the fields and the maintenance of any kind of parks and fields, but we take care of the recreation facilities.
Understood. I'll ask it another way, because I
sorry.
know like Island Fields, and we'll talk about the pickleball courts are gonna come up, I think, next week. And I'm just curious, why is that Parks and not the rec department? I'm just trying to understand.
So the project will be, the park itself will be under Parks, but if we operate a program out of it, then that would be recreation.
Okay, that's really just the clarification I wanted. And then the other part was, before COVID, we used to have like Nooners hockey at the ice garden. And I don't think it's that big a deal to go to the rec center, but is that still due to short staffing why we don't have the
Nope,
ice
it's
garden?
actually coming back. As soon as we have the ice garden fully open and ready to go, which will be hopefully this week, noon hockey will come back to the garden.
Oh, that'll be like the first time in like 4 years. That'll be so
Yeah.
fun and interesting.
Yes.
All right.
Convenient.
Yeah, very convenient for at least me, so awesome.
Word.
Yeah, back to memberships and daily admissions. Is there what happened to Silver Sneakers at senior discounts?
We still do Silver Sneakers and also Renew Active. It's another program much like Silver Sneakers. So it's a free membership for those, and we get reimbursed through those two organizations. And then we also do discounted rates for senior passes.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. You're a master juggler. The programming that you do for our community is truly amazing. I know that you have as many challenges as every other department does and more sometimes. So I just appreciate, that you can show up here with such a great attitude and a smile on your face after knowing all the things that you go through in a year. I think our cost recovery target is 50%. So while we're on the low end of that right now, historically, we've been able to maintain that 47 to 49%. I look forward to the business planning that you're undergoing and having more conversations about how we can maybe get back to that 50 or even better. But, I know that what that requires is raising fees and costs to some of our community members. So I'll be interested to see if there's any areas that we can make improvement. And it's exciting. Thank you for your work.
Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda, we're going to get to Community Development Agency. I have not seen that.
Yeah, agency.
The CDA.
We're an agency now.
You're an agency now because you oversee other stuff.
I didn't get a badge or anything, though. I might take that up with management.
I've got one for you.
Thanks.
Plastic, but
I got a metal one for you. Doesn't carry any weight, but you can flash it.
Just take a beat for Councilmember Guth.
My name is Philip Sapino. I'm here from ComDev. He'll be back in a moment. You can just roll into it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Tory and Council. My name is Philip Sapino. I'm the Community Development Director. I'm joined by CJ Oliver, who's the Environmental Health Director, and Tessa Schreiner, the Climate Action Manager. And I would just like to note, given who we get to follow, we're fun too. Community development, environmental health, and sustainability are fun too. Just ask our customers. We have thousands of customers. They love working with us, and I guarantee you they leave with a smile every time, just like you do the rec department.
Well, not just fun, debauchery. I mean,
We like to keep it clean and orderly downstairs.
first floor is the home of debauchery. Right.
I am presenting with CJ and Tessa this evening for a number of reasons, not least of which is because they're experts in what they do, but also to reflect the fact that for the last 3 years, we have been going through the process of combining our departments into the Community Development Agency, as you see up on the screen. We still have separate budgets, as you're going to see in the slide deck this evening and in your budget book, but we work hand in glove every day downstairs serving our community. I do want to take a moment and introduce Terja Ernst, who is a longtime community member who joined our team this year, and this is her first go-around with budget, and we're really grateful for her to be here. So our combined agency works every single day to ensure the triple bottom line for our community. The triple bottom line being a healthy community, a strong economy, and a thriving natural environment. We protect the quality of life for our residents every day, and we ensure a world-class visitor experience year-round, and that is played out both in the built and natural environments in our community. And this is hard work. It's often visible work. It's not all in the paper every day, though. We've got 41 people downstairs who do prideful work, high-quality work every day with a high degree of expertise, and it's a great privilege of mine to work with all those folks. And so we're excited to share some of our story with you this evening and walk you through our 2024 budget. So looking back a little bit at 2023, which has been an active year for us as usual, just to highlight sort of 3 major achievements for us, we continue to update our codes. That's the building code, the land use code, as well as some of the environmental health standards in the municipal code. Just to highlight, again, the implementation of some of the outcomes of the residential moratorium code amendment process. The implementation of some of those code amendments has been ongoing in 2023, and I think delivered very well on that council's objectives for that process. We also revised and updated what used to be called the Climate Action Plan. It's now called the Aspen Sustainability Action Plan. And this council moved forward an update to that plan, which we are diligently implementing. And I want to highlight, too, the innovative, industry-leading building and energy codes that our building department staff brought forth to the last council in early 2023, and which were implemented over the course of the year. Those were big achievements for us on the code update side of things. We're also focused on our departmental work culture. This is something we have in our Compass Plan every year. We want to ensure that we have an engaged, productive staff. We want to reduce staff turnover, and we do that by focusing on staff wellness, staff development and education, as well as a commitment to our organization's service value. And there's several ways over the course of the last year that we have doubled down on ensuring we have a work culture that reflects our organizational culture and the needs of our community and customers. And finally, improvements to the development review process. This is year 3 of this work, going back to when I began in this position. And we're really focused on efficiency in our review processes, improved alignment across our review agencies, really rethinking legacy practices, and finding opportunities for increased collaboration, both inside our agency as well as with some of our sister development review departments. And we're doubling down on processing permits as a way to not only respond to our customers' needs, but also make sure that we continue to innovate in terms of how we provide that service to our customers and community. And looking forward into 2024, first and foremost, more Aspen Sustainability Action Plan implementation. This council has put in place an environmental goal, which I would describe as being comprehensive in its scope and nature. And our agency is focused on supporting the achievement of that goal over time. This fall, we're rolling out the organics ordinance, which the previous council put into place. We're working closely with the business community and downtown property owners to make sure that that rollout is seamless and responsive to their needs. We continue to look at construction and demolition waste diversion, which was some direction from the previous council, to ensure that we are diverting as much waste from the landfill as possible, and again, in support of the current council's environmental goal. We continue to expand EV charging infrastructure. We are looking internally at increasing the presence of electric vehicles in the city's fleet, moving towards a zero emissions fleet over time, and previous council supported the development of a plan to help us achieve that. And finally, and you've had conversations about this recently, we're working very hard still on the development of building performance standards in support of the Building IQ ordinance that was passed by council in February.
April of 2022.
Yeah, April. Thanks, Tessa. Yeah, please. And again, in keeping with the idea that we are integrating our departments, that work is ongoing as well. Some of the critical focus areas that this particular effort really responds to are community engagement, smart customer-focused government, and a safe lived-in community. I think particularly on the smart customer-focused government side, this work really helps us find efficiencies between our different departments and the services that we provide. Leveraging existing resources, so a very specific example of those two things is combining inspection services. Whereas before we had different inspections conducted by different staff members in different parts of our agency, we've cross-trained some of those staff members to be able to do those inspections on each other's behalf. And that is an efficiency that allows us to better provide customer service across the board. We're also focused on implementing new vision and mission statements for our department. Those statements had not been updated for over a dozen years, and certainly hadn't been updated since we combined our agencies. And we feel like this is really meaningful work insofar as it reflects the sort of scope and work of our combined agency. It also inspires and directs our staff, and from a decision-making standpoint and from a retention and sort of organizational culture standpoint, we feel like this has been really meaningful work for us. With respect to a framework for managing regulations, I want to highlight something specific here. Between environmental health, zoning, building, and planning, we had 4 conflicting sort of sets of regulations for how wildlife enclosures were to be developed on private property. And that created problems for applicants, it created problems for staff, and we've gone through the process of identifying those conflicting standards, streamlining those standards, and prioritizing the outcomes that we feel confident that the community is really looking for with respect to the relationship between private development and the protection of our wildlife resources. So that's just one concrete example of places where this integration process has helped us find efficiency. And finally, making sure that our delivery of services is aligned with our mission statement. This, again, sort of supports a culture of continuous improvement in our department. It is essential for us, in order to be responsive to the needs of our customers and the needs of our community, that we're constantly improving how we do business. First and foremost among this is facilitating a process advisory group. This has been a staff-level process for the last 6 or 7 months that has identified areas for potential improvement in the building and development, the development review and permitting process, and then implementing those improvements. One specific example of that is we are towing the finish line on creating a list of over-the-counter permits, where development applicants who can check the boxes on a checklist and provide us with the required materials can submit for, pay for, and receive in as little as 48 hours several of the permits, which sometimes took weeks previously for us to review and issue. We feel like this is a significant improvement and reflective of where our combined agency is going in the future. We're also looking to maintain our exceptional community and customer service focus. This, again, is central to our agency being smart and customer focused and making sure we're responding to the needs of our community. And a specific example of that is improvements to our development permitting process interface. We're constantly improving that interface, that web-based platform, to make sure that it simultaneously serves our needs and meets our customers' needs as well. So staffing in our agency, excuse me, I just got lost. We have 40.8 people. We have such exceptional staff down there. We actually sort of grade on a curve, and I only constitute 0.8 of a person, so that's what the sort of 0.8 is about. Everybody else is so great they get to be a fully realized human. I'm only 0.8 of a person. But these are fabulous and dedicated people. We're focused on our staff development in order to increase the retention of these wonderful people and support their professional development so they can continue to serve the community. With respect to expenditures and revenues, revenue tracks development activity in our community. There's a direct relationship between the number of permits submitted for, the valuation of those permits, and revenue from planning and building to support the delivery of plans review services. We operate on a cost recovery model for the entire department. And so as you can see from a revenue standpoint, there's more of the revenue comes from building than from planning. That number obviously fluctuates over time. We actually look forward to a work session with council on November 13th to have a really sort of high-level policy conversation as we move into potentially implementing new development services fees. We want to make sure that our approach to the creation of those fees is responsive to council's policy direction on the relationship between development in our community and the expectations for covering the services provided by this organization to support that development. And from an expenditure standpoint, obviously you can see there's more of an even split between building and planning. This is reflective of an almost even split in the staffing between the building and planning divisions within community development. Our administrative costs are also split. So we have an admin team of 4 who are focused on frontline customer service as well as management of our permitting system and support of development review and permitting broadly. And those costs are split between the 2 divisions, and we work really, really closely together as reflected in that sort of shared operating cost. We have 2 supplemental requests for next year. One of them is a staff position. This would be the short-term rental program support specialist. This new position would support the short-term rental program, which was created in response to Ordinance 9 of 2022. It would expand the capacity of this current staff of 1 to not only manage the short-term rental permitting and customer support functions, but also expand that service into focusing on economic and policy analysis. We recognize that the short-term rental industry is a major driver in our tourist economy, and it's also a significant contributor to our bed base. And as such, we want to make sure that we have the staffing in place to help us understand the relationship between the city's regulations, this program, and how we can ensure that we're supporting this, again, really important part of our economy and our community. Excuse me, you mind just going back for 1 second, Matt? Sorry. We also want to make sure that we're being responsive to our customer service and needs for education and regulatory compliance. This position was anticipated when council put in place the short-term rental fees in 2022. It was built into the 2022 short-term rental fee study, and the position is anticipated to be covered by short-term rental fees as they're collected presently. Thanks, Matt. And the other supplemental request is ongoing software hosting fee increases. As has been the case, I think, in every budget presentation I've seen this year, we are seeing inflationary costs for all the services that we receive downstairs, including from our 5 primary software hosts. These costs are increasing faster than the fixed 2.5% increase that's baked into the budget annually. These 5 software hosts support specifically our permit portal and our plans review softwares. And so the alternatives to keeping up with costs from these 5 vendors would either be the creation of a new and different system, which from our last experience would take several years and several $1 million to build, or going back to paper. And I'd love to have a conversation offline about going back to paper. So anyway, that is our overview. We have, one minor capital request. We are a people department, not a capital department, and so it's really just the 2 supplementals and a new printer and copier machine. So just an overview. Again, our Compass goals are focused on supporting council's goals, building out the integration of our agency, and making sure that we're being as responsive to our customers' needs as we possibly can be, in support of the overall goals the community desires for the built and natural environment. We've got some supplemental requests to support that work, and sometimes we need to print and copy paper to support that work as well, and that's what the capital request is for. And CJ and Tessa are going to walk us through the environmental health budget. I'm happy to take questions now, or we can kind of break it up into parts.
Let's one section at a time.
Great.
I just have a brief one. First of all, on that last slide, it said something about a multifunction machine. I don't know what it does, but it sounds great. I could probably use one. I could use one of those at my.
It also scans.
That's not the multifunction.
Can it make toast?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I should get one, but maybe not. John, did you have a?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, ComDev is currently up to full staffing except for the STR program support
We have
specialist?
2 open FTEs save for the requested position. That's a senior planner in the planning division and a deputy chief building official on the building side. Those are both active postings right now. So we're close. We're close.
Pretty good news.
Yeah.
This is pretty good news.
I'm sure the permit waiting times have gone down.
They have.
Great news. Thanks for everything you do. I'm really excited about all the code updates we made over the last couple of years, and especially the construction and demolition waste diversions. Thanks for your efforts.
Bill.
Thanks, Philip and team. Appreciate all you do. On the pie chart of FTEs, I guess you don't need to bring it up, but, and I understand that this may not be apples to apples because every community structures their departments a little bit differently, but how does Aspen compare in terms of its employee load, a percentage of its employee load dedicated to community development versus the rest of its organization? Are we high, low, on point? Where do we?
I really can't speak kind of to the rest of the organization. I'm really focused on my agency. I'd be happy to speak to comparable communities, but Sarah looks like she wants to.
Yeah,
go,
my experience with the Mountain West communities here in the state, we have one of the largest ComDev departments. And the nature of it is the complexity of our code and the volume. For example, Philip and I were reviewing volume data on the quantity of permits come in. We've already surpassed our 2022 permit volume. We surpassed that in early September, late August in terms of submissions. And so the workload is definitely ebbs and flows in this community. I think that that's something that we have programmed in through the use of third-party reviewers to help accommodate that ebb and flow. So they're there when we need them. They're on standby for when we don't. I will say, though, is Philip and I have been looking at the development review process with a few other of the agency directors and are contemplating some changes. They're not timed with your budget process. And Philip's doing some follow-up work on that we're trying to decide how to reallocate some resources to be more responsive.
Great, thanks. As we've discussed separately, you know I'm very interested and supportive of making this process more efficient. But I would be curious to do some, very simple research on how many bodies it takes in other similar communities to do the work that they do. Yeah. And I don't think any of it should be based on dollar volume. I think it should be based on permit quantity or some other metric. Dollar volume, I think, is just irrelevant because, as we all know, it's more expensive to do things here than it is elsewhere for a variety of reasons. But, number of permits or, square feet or something like that, I think would be more relevant to me.
I apologize. I think I misunderstood your question initially. I thought you were asking about compared to other city departments. Sarah's correct. In the Mountain West, we have one of the largest community development departments per capita that I'm aware of. There is a correlation between valuation and required staffing levels and also the expertise of those staff. There is not another mountain town that I'm aware of that sees the frequency of vehicle lifts being installed in residential structures, or sees the complexity of HVAC systems, or is asked to administer the complexity of structural and energy codes that our staff is asked to review for. And so there's a direct correlation between that complexity, not only of the builds, which translates into value, and yes, this is a cost-inflated construction environment, but it's also an amenity-inflated construction environment, and we have to be able to respond to that. So there is a correlation there, and we actually look frequently to development review agencies in major cities for comparables, because they're dealing with a level of complexity in some of their construction that actually speaks more closely to some of what we're reviewing, just in terms of our own analysis of staffing levels, training levels, et cetera. And we are internally doing an analysis of comparable communities right now, both for process, how a permit makes its way through some of those communities' processes, and we're sort of modulating that analysis relative to the complexity of their codes and their development environment, because we really want to have data to support decision-making that's responsive to our local context.
Okay, I can appreciate that relationship, and thank you for clarifying that. And I can agree that there's some premium that we should have on staffing levels versus, fill-in-the-blank community. But I don't know that it should be a 200 or 300% premium on the staffing levels. So I really would love to see some of that information and understand how we compare. And it sounds like you're already on the way of generating that information. So I would be interested in seeing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Ward and then Sam.
Is it the EPIC permit to, the EPIC permit to fast track redevelopment, or when a new business comes into a similar type of establishment or structure?
Yes, we offer a sort of expedited review path for specific types of what we call tenant finish commercial permits. That's correct. It's called an EPIC permit.
And how's that, what's the timeline on that to get?
I don't know the real-time data on that right now. Our sort of desired review time on that is 6 weeks, and we try and beat that. But it sort of fluctuates seasonally. Typically, when we're ahead of a tourist season, we get an influx of tenant finish permits like that, which then actually makes our review times a little bit slower. So it really does fluctuate over the course of the year. We shoot to beat our 6-week sort of posted desired turnaround time.
And I'm assuming that the developers or the new tenants are aware of that program?
From my experience, between the commercial brokers and some of the landlords, some of the property owners, they're aware of the program and they push their tenants towards it. And there's plenty of instances where folks will reach out to us and we will suggest that if they sort of package their permit in a certain way that they could be eligible for the program.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ward. Sam?
For me, I was wondering if the surplus in your budget covered the requested FTEs as stated of the 219,644.
What page are you
I'm on the slide deck, but I was just wondering, making sure the FTEs were included in that 2024 request.
So we have labor savings to date because of open positions. Our baseline budget number is based upon full staffing. And so if we get to full staffing in 2024, then that labor savings number will be significantly smaller. But the supplemental request, I believe, is over and above that base operating budget number that's going to be in your budget book.
Okay, so it does include that. I'm not sure if you know this. This was in the information packet, but I was kind of curious. The August occupancy was down 6% year over year. Does that include short-term rentals, or is that just hotels in the ACRA report?
Do you know which, okay, so we need to know the source.
Yeah, ACRA report.
Yeah, that does not typically include short-term rentals. It's a sampling process they use in partnership with the destination marketing funds the council provides to ACRA and with the ski company that does that evaluation going forward and looking back. It's the Destimetrics work.
Yes, and to add further complication to that, based on whether a hotel is actually operating or not will affect the numbers of available beds, which will change the percentage.
So like
in
the
any
Molly
given month.
Gibson being offline.
Yeah. So comparing that to a year ago starts making those comparisons a little bit off at times.
No, that definitely helps, because right after that sentence says that's like the biggest drop of a major month in Aspen, like in the summer month of Aspen. So that was alarming to me, and I just wanted to know if that includes short-term rentals. And with that, to the budget, I was wondering, is this short-term rental position, I was wondering if it was really needed this year, or if it's too early to implement, because we just implemented the short-term rental program in April, and I'm just looking, really would like to know more about how this position will help that program.
We, from the time the program was put in place, we were very sensitive to making sure that we understood what our staffing needs were going to be. The new program, just rolling it out, new staff member, didn't know where things were going to go. And so we started tracking time the day that Emmy, who's our current program manager, started. And all of our time tracking data showed that in order to be responsive to customer needs, manage the permit issuance and renewal process, and create time for, as I suggested, engaging in more policy work, more sort of economic analysis work, we were down significantly relative to our actual staffing needs. And so we wouldn't have brought the request forward if we didn't feel really comfortable that this position was going to be fully employed the day they started.
Okay, that's good to know. From a council standpoint, are we gonna have a short-term rental, like, update discussion on data collected, I don't know, 6 months after April, a year?
It goes into your info onlys.
It has been going into the info only, so I'm not sure if I've
Right,
seen
I
one
directed
yet.
Emmy to put it in info onlys, not doing emails, so it was available to the entire community.
Have we gotten one? Have I missed it? Sorry.
We'll have to go back and look at the last one. It's typically only a report we produce. She produces one for me quarterly, but I don't think we issue the quarterly one all the time, because it's more of a summary of, hey, here's what's up.
We were planning on doing an annual update.
Okay.
At some point, just based on that ACRA one, I know it's trying to stick with budget, if we could get an August short-term rental report, that'd be interesting to see if there was a correlation between that and the hotels.
Well, and I want to be really clear too.
Yeah.
We do not have the ability to track short-term rental occupancy numbers the way that Destimetrics tracks lodging occupancy. That data is like hen's teeth, and there are communities all over the country who are trying to get a sense of what occupancy looks like in their short-term rental inventory. But the response from the platforms, VRBO, Airbnb, et cetera, is that that's proprietary private information that's sort of really only available to operators.
I guess second to occupancy would be dollars collected through our tax, and that would be something I'd be interested in for this August, and then I guess we'll compare it each year over year if we can't do occupancy, at least we can do dollar amount.
And you have that coming to you monthly at this point through the monthly financial reports that I'm sending out.
Yeah, but obviously this year is our first year, so we have
Right.
nothing to compare it.
Sure.
Yeah. And then lastly, on the budgetary talks, I've talked to a lot of locals who find it a high barrier to entry to get work done on their homes because of the permit cost and system. And I was wondering if there was, this is pretty values-based as far as what we're trying to do. I think someone told me they were trying to put in a retaining wall, and it cost them over $100,000. And we can't really help with the private market as far as like what things cost around here, but we can help with the permitting system. And I kind of wonder if there's any opportunity for subsidies for longtime locals with old homes. And before you answer that, with that and the demolition permit system, I'm kind of wondering if we can do some sort of incentive base of doing some environmental greenhouse gas upgrades on homes and waiving permit fees, because I'm speculating here, and we just had a demolition permit talk with Chrissy Pope last week, but I kind of wonder if her home was maybe not renovated and updated, because if you've owned your home for a long time here, the barrier to entry through the permitting system could be enough to not go about upgrading your home and sending it into a position where it might have to be demolished and it's already too late. So I'm just wondering, subsidy-wise, if that could be built in.
So specifically with subsidies, I'm not aware of a community that provides subsidies to individual types of residents to comply with city regulations. But that would, I think, ultimately be a policy conversation that council would have to have. But broadly, in our industry, we are required by law to treat all of our applicants the same. Everybody has to go through kind of the same regulatory path to get to a building permit. And I recognize fully that in these development-intensive communities, be it here or Telluride or anywhere else, being in line with speculative and luxury developers when you're just trying to, fix a shed can be a really challenging place to be. And from a sort of personal standpoint, being challenged to respond to that legitimate need is an unfortunate reality of running a community development department in a mountain town. But to date, I am unaware of legal solutions to creating separate paths for different types of applicants based on their place of residence or their economic status or other standards like that.
Okay. In my mind, and this is just like really half-baked, but a grant program to people that are trying to do that. I don't know where that money comes from necessarily, but I do feel like you guys do everything you can from your end, but it's really expensive to live here. And like you said, trying to replace a shed or trying to like upgrade your home, even in like an environmental manner, can be out of reach for some people. And I'd like, from the city's perspective, to help those people as much as we can.
Sure.
And it's, incentivize them to do the right thing so it doesn't get to the point of the demolition permit, hopefully.
So that's going to be a great conversation for when we get to the REMP fund.
For the REMP fund? Okay, so potentially some money from that could go
We
towards
already
it.
fund those programs, a lot of the programs you're talking of through our partnership with CoA.
Okay, I'll ask one more thing, Philip, if, do you get a lot of people that, come to you to do those like shed repairs and miniature things and then look at the costs just from the permitting side and be like, I can't afford that?
Hey, hold on.
Sorry.
This is a little different discussion here. I totally support what you're talking about and want you to talk about it more, but this conversation is not necessarily that venue. My suggestion is send an email to Sarah that kind of says, hey, I want info and I want to pursue this, so that you can kind of get that information and get that discussion, because this is just not that discussion. And I know that there's maybe budget implications, but you're taking the discussion at this point just a little further without some of the simple conversations that you can get and some background information. So I would love for you to pursue this, but not necessarily at this time.
Do you mind if he answers that last question for me?
I don't mind if he answers it.
Okay.
Do you mind just restating the question, please?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you get a lot of those people that come in for like the shed repair, the sort of things on their homes, and then they look at the cost and they end up not doing it because of the permitting process even to start?
I think I end up hearing from people who are, who have made the decision to do it and are struggling with the permit fees or are struggling with compliance with our extensive regulations. There's a provision in the building code and another one in the land use code that provides some latitude to the administrators in our department to reduce fees for some specific reasons. And a couple times a year, I'm afforded an opportunity to do that for somebody who has an economic justification for asking for it.
You have done that for people? You
Yes.
have that? Okay, that's good to know.
But it's very narrow.
It's very narrow.
That's
I
correct.
don't want to create false hope. It's a very narrow scope of what can be considered.
Okay. No, I think I made my point, so thank you.
Well, I don't know if you made your point or what your point was, but this is an issue, and it's an issue for our community. And I really do, and I'm being sincere, I do encourage you to, contact the manager's office so that she's aware that you want to have some conversations to get more info around this. Yeah, I had the same questions like a couple months ago, and I got the same answers.
Well, no, I guess the point was, I realize now that this might not be in the comm dev budget department, but it's a values discussion of where to put our money, where it might come from a REMP fund or some other place.
I have one follow-up budget question.
Sure, go ahead.
It might be for Pete, actually, because it may apply across all city departments, but wondering, in terms of 505 fund expenditure transfers, whatever the right terminology is that something that's budgeted every year, or that's only when there's a surplus that it's transferred into that fund?
So we do a per FTE charge, so it is budgeted, and it's the 10,000 a head right now. It gets transferred into our fund to accumulate those dollars over time so that there's an ability to acquire, develop, maintain existing units.
So each department, if, they've got, what was your number, 44.8?
40.8.
40.8. They're assessed that per FTE rate, that's budgeted, and then there's also a transfer when there's a surplus?
No, so that's truly the funding stream that's going into the 505.
A budgeted thing?
Yep.
Why do I recall something about when there's a surplus, there's extra money transferred somewhere for housing? Is that?
I'm not aware of that.
So that is like the Marot Fund. So where we have certain housing projects that may be bringing in more revenue based upon appropriate rents versus what the upkeep costs are, and those funds transfer to the 150 fund. So it can be used to produce general community housing.
And that's because the 150 fund will ultimately turn around and help redevelop the Merle property at some point.
Thanks.
Yep.
And then a follow-up question. So there's an FTE request here. The ones that were, I think in our overview, our starting overview, there's 9, is it 9? 10 FTE requests for this next calendar year. Are we seeing them one by one? It's those 10?
As they come through on each
Right.
department, correct?
And then you also have them in your, on page 3, I'm sorry, under past tab 3, is all the supplemental requests and the justifications for the additional FTE. And then we'll find there's one other place where it has the full FTE count, tab 4. Yeah, tab 4, first page is the 2024 FTE summary. So it shows you the 23 base, 24 base, and then the proposed changes.
Great, thank you.
Page 67 of the budget book.
I'm glad you're looking at your computer when you said that. I was scared for a minute.
I don't look at the hard copy.
You just leave it open on your nightstand as you go to sleep. Any other questions on comm dev? We still have two more related topics coming up. All right, we'll go forward. Thank you for that, Philip.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good evening, Mayor Tory and Aspen City Council. CJ Oliver with Environmental Health and Sustainability. I'm going to go through with Tessa the Environmental Health and Sustainability budget expenditures. There's a lot of really good upside to what Philip discussed with kind of the combination of our different departments into a single agency. One of the downsides is that Philip gets to go first and cover all the fun, exciting slides with cool pictures, and I'm going to jump right into some pie charts with revenues and expenditures, so buckle in, it's going to be awesome.
I thought you were going to say the fun part's being in like a big leaky boat with me, having to have these kind of conversations when it's not your problem.
I wasn't going to go into that. All right, so first off, for revenues for the Environmental Health and Sustainability team, the Environmental Health Department has two kind of regular routine revenue sources, one of which is the restaurant license fees that come into the Consumer Protection team. That's about $45,000 to $50,000 each year. And those are renewed annually, so typically money that comes in around the first of the year. The second is the single-use bag fees that we collect from those who give away single-use bags in the community. The Climate Action Team draws revenues from three different places. The REMP Fund, which we'll talk a little bit more about the REMP Fund in Tessa's presentation upcoming, and then also from water and electric ratepayers. All right. On the expenditure side, I kind of look at this pie chart as a little bit of a graphic that shows the different programming areas for the environmental health team. And a couple of things that I really want to pull out and highlight are some very public-facing and visible programs that we operate in the Environmental Health Department, one of which is the Rio Grande Recycle Center. The Recycle Center is really kind of this last piece of the puzzle to round out the picture of waste diversion in our community. So residents are required to have single stream recycling as kind of part of their base rate of trash service, but there's a number of items that aren't collected as part of single stream. One of those is glass, another is large metal things, and then we have a prohibition on yard waste in our community. So we're able to collect all of those additional items down at the Rio Grande Recycle Center and kind of fill out the last remaining pieces to really focus on waste diversion. In addition, we also launched a residential scale compost collection. So folks are welcome to have compost collected at their home, but we actually have a drop-off for residents that don't have space or time or desire to have collection at their house. They can collect things on their own and bring them down to the Rio Grande Recycle Center and drop them off there. So it really is kind of this neat facility to flesh out the rest of the picture. The other thing that I wanted to highlight on is our consumer protection program. And for those of you that aren't like into the science of this thing, it's really the restaurant inspection program. So we do plan reviews, restaurant inspections, and really focus on helping to keep one of Aspen's main economic drivers, which is the food and beverage industry, serving safe food and beverage. And we focus in our team on doing that in a very customer service focused manner. So almost every community, whether it's at the county level or the city level, has a consumer protection team that goes in and does these inspections. But our group really focuses on developing rapport and partnership and being really there to aid in the process of getting people from A to B and helping to set them up for success, because their success certainly is success on our end as well. And to that end, one of the things that's going to be brand new for that team in 2024 is that we will take folks who are accustomed to kind of the kitchen restaurant scene who speak native Spanish along with us on some of our inspections to try this out as a pilot program, to be able to deliver effective information to the Spanish-speaking community that works in a lot of our local restaurants in real time. So historically, we've had trainings that were offered in Spanish, or we would go in and do a training in the restaurant and have a translator that's kind of talking about things that happened before or could happen in the future. This will actually allow us to really provide real-time information and get feedback from folks in their native language while we're out doing the inspections. Not something that we're familiar with happening literally in any other jurisdiction, but something that our team came up with that I'm really excited to roll out and see what kind of improvement we can make on the food safety realm with something new here in town in the upcoming year.
I have one question on that, CJ,
Yes.
if I may. Could you explain what the expenditure on the single-use bag program is related to?
The expenditure on single-use bag, yeah, absolutely. So that goes for a few different things. One, it's to purchase reusable bags, which we're typically spending $30,000 to $40,000 getting reusable bags that go out into the bag banks and are supplied around the community. So folks have the opportunity to pick those up at no additional cost. And we also spend some of those dollars on the electronic waste collection events each year that we typically do 1 or 2 a year out at the Rural Housing Facility to collect electronic waste for the community. when we collected those dollars, they had to go towards either the provision of multi-use bags to the community or other reuse reduction programs that weren't currently in place before we started collecting the fees. So that's kind of the two places for those.
Thanks.
Absolutely. We go to climate expenditures. So the thing that I like to highlight in this slide, and Tessa can speak more to this later, is a remarkable ability to efficiently deliver services. She has a 1% administrative cost and a 99% program delivery cost, which is something of a high watermark for the rest of us to try to achieve. It may or may not have something to do that they get administrative services out of the environmental health budget, but I just think that this is pretty awesome. So we'll stick with the 99% efficiency, which is really a high watermark. On a more serious note, though, the climate team is really working to do one thing, and that's, council has passed some very important and progressive goals and policies over the last several years, including science-based targets around greenhouse gas reductions, updates that were mentioned earlier to the Aspen Sustainability Action Plan, and the 2023 council goal set that was just coming out of this last council retreat, which has the Protect Our Environment goal. This team is really working very diligently to pursue all of those program areas. And the community benefit is that we're really focusing on the climate crisis and providing a sustainable future for the city of Aspen with the climate team. Like, that is their single purpose and drive. They don't have any of these kind of ancillary pushes. Council gives direction on kind of what specific things they want this team to work on, and they are very responsive to that. Work plans look a little bit different every year, kind of based on what council's prerogative on focus areas and what's parts of the sustainability action plan we really want to focus on any given year or period of time. But that's really what the entirety of that climate budget goes towards.
Great. So EHS, and climate specifically, has one supplemental request for 2024, and that is for a sustainability analyst position. What we are proposing is that this takes a part-time, currently budgeted intern position and expands it into a full-time position. And this is directly responsive to the request of council to work on a variety, again, mentioned before, of policy to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and as requested in October of 2022, to accelerate that work whenever possible. And one of our bottlenecks in that arena is capacity, and so we feel that this is the most fiscally responsible way to respond to that ask and request of council to execute this work and to keep pushing harder to reduce our emissions faster, is to turn this position and just expand it into a full-time position. What this also does is that it allows us to better respond to community requests and services without much break in our services, as this is currently an interned position, and we have incredible interns and have over the years. Those interns have left and then leave a gap in our programming and ability to respond to community needs. And so this would allow for increased community benefit and consistency in our programs while being able to respond even better to council's direction.
All right, we have one small capital project that's in the environmental health budget, and that is to install a visibility monitor for the city of Aspen in 2024. And one of the things that we are really trying to focus on with our air quality program is to have the community and community members and visitors be able to make informed decisions from a health-based perspective around air quality without needing some sort of hard, fast number. So we don't want people to focus on, oh, the number today is 27, and what does that mean? We really want people to be able to look outside. If they're out in the community, they're camping, they're not next to their computer, their phone doesn't have service, and just be able to take a quick look around and say, generally, what is the air quality today? And very, very frequently, that decision can be made at kind of a macro level based on visibility. And so kind of helping to train our community to understand what some landmarks are and show those landmarks on a visibility monitor that they could kind of train themselves on, if you will, on the computer, but really sort of start to develop that sense of, like, I walk outside and I can't see Capitol. I walk outside and I can't see the pass. I walk outside and I can see Sopris. Like, it's good, it's bad. I walk outside and I can't see the Hickory House. We got a problem. And I don't need a number. I don't need a specific set of criteria to do that, and really help to kind of teach folks a very simple, hands-on way that they're able to do that, whether it's in this community or wherever they may be from if they're not from here. And to wrap things up, as I mentioned earlier, Philip got to talk about all the exciting Compass Plan stuff, so I won't go over that again. We do have one supplemental request, which Tessa touched on, and a small capital project that I just talked about. I'm happy to answer any questions on the environmental health and sustainability budget that each of you may have.
The capital request is a one-time?
It is a one-time. Yep, it's for the purchase and installation of that monitor.
The equipment?
Yeah, we think just to clarify, there are operating costs to it, but we believe we're able to absorb those.
Yep, they're in our existing.
Interesting. Questions? Comments? Sam, we'll start with you.
I was wondering, Tessa, if you could explain what the sustainability analysts will sort of do on a day-to-day basis, and then go into maybe some positive impacts it would have from that.
Absolutely, yeah. So as CJ mentioned, our work is really focused on achieving council's directive and goals, and we do this really through our Protect Our Environment goal, the 2023 to 2025 goal that council has, the Aspen Sustainability Action Plan, and achieving science-based targets, among many other things, and working with other departments. So I'll touch on just a few things that this position would do if approved. It would support really interagency kind of consultancy. So we're working even more with other agencies within our, or other departments within our own agency to find efficiencies in the built environment, to support asset in identifying, you know, what ways, how are our buildings performing, and what ways can we improve them, supporting, you know, APD, let's say, in our streets department in finding opportunities to upgrade or find efficiencies in fleet electrification. And so it's doing analysis work around a lot of that, which a lot of it too is proactive. Where can we, again, find efficiencies and look forward, and continue to be at the leading edge of climate work, which we have been for nearly 2 decades. And so it, and supporting internally. So those are just a few things that this position would work on, really supporting across environmental health and sustainability.
And climate action has 3 FTEs, so this would add a 4th person to climate action?
That's correct. There's 3 FTEs, and we have 2 part-time, and this would turn one of those part-time employees into an FTE.
What are the titles of everyone in climate action?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the Sustainability Manager, Climate Action Manager. We have 2 Sustainability Program Administrators that do support, or well, 2 within our budget and do support work. And then those 2 positions are sustainability or climate interns, those part-time positions.
And just to be really clear, the intern system you don't think has worked well enough because they come and go too often?
Yeah, we are lucky enough that climate is a really attractive space to work in. We get a lot of really high-performing, incredible interns, and we really encourage them, you know, after they are with us to find non-intern positions. For example, we had an incredible intern that left us earlier than her scheduled year with us because she got a job at Aspen Valley Land Trust, you know, a full-time paid position. And so we lost an incredible intern just due to the kind of natural processes, and that left a gap for a little while in our work plan.
Got it. And I should have asked this for some of the other ones. I guess my last one is, when was the last time the climate action group grew in FTEs, if you know?
I don't have an answer to that.
It hasn't. There was one additional FTE in this team that I pulled out to move into the communications office, and that happened in
2019 or
2019 or 2020,
Yeah.
that we made that move because there was, in my opinion, that funding for the general fund could support all the needs of this office as well as support more. It wasn't being fully utilized for that specific narrow job description it had at that time. If it's helpful to the council, the full supplemental request is on page 38 behind tab 3. The list of all the FTEs is under page 4 by individual position, and climate action is on page 74.
Thanks, Tessa.
Board, any questions here? Bill?
Thanks, Tessa. Maybe another one for Pete. Based on what Tessa just said, are interns not counted in our FTE counts?
They are not. They're considered temporary staff.
Are they paid?
Yes.
So this is something unique to hear that I learned over time. They utilize FTE to mean full-time employee, not full-time equivalent employee.
Permanent staffing.
FTE is permanent
How
staffing.
many employees do we have, including interns and part-time positions?
It varies by season, but we're probably running about 500 during high season on payroll.
When you have park staff that have all the seasonal staffing, and you have recreation for coaches, for referees, for everything else, that definitely escalates in the summer months.
Instructors, yeah,
So our payroll can hit 500, 550 plus people.
Do we know what the average annual employment, if we annualize it and across all 12 months?
No, but I could come up with that number for you. Not at this moment, but I could get that.
I understand. No, I'd be curious to know that because, yeah, I assumed FTE meant full-time equivalent like it does everywhere else I've ever seen that acronym. I got some thinking to do on that one. Thank you.
Thanks. John?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for all your efforts. Without environmental health and sustainability, that's why we live here. That's why our visitors come here. We need to preserve the environment, put as much focus on preserving the environment as possible. So thanks.
My comments are a couple. You know, when we were just going through these slides and as I reviewed this, I was pleasantly surprised at actually how much subsidy or money from the general fund is used for an area that we consider ourselves as a leader and progressive leader in this space. So to that, I want to commend you. Thank you so much. I have just two questions. One was, I want to give you a commendation for the compost availability at Rio Grande. I hope that people are aware of that. That is fantastic. I do recognize that in order to access it, perhaps you have to use a QR code and get an entry and stuff like that, but I don't think that's a barrier to too many people. I don't think enough people know that that is available for them, and so I wanted to just reiterate that. Thank you very much for supplying that. On the other side of that coin, at Rio Grande, as I was down there the other day, the bins have, we've got fewer bins than we used to, fewer collection items that we're taking and such. So I think that maybe there's a greater utilization of Rio Grande that we could be making. I don't know where it is or how it is, but when I went down there, and I'm just, going over just my history with it, I've seen that place humming and a buzzing, and we've just reduced some of the collection that we do there. I will say that I am glad that we did not go down the path that we were on so many years ago where we were going to spend a couple $1 million for some improved facilities down there. I'm glad that we didn't do that, but maybe there is an opportunity for more at Rio Grande. I had one question. Of course, this is not budget related, so I don't need to have discussion on it now, but I'd love to know what we are doing in consideration of 2024 and the Colorado legislature that allows municipalities to have some control over single-use plastics and the like. And again, that's not a budget question, but I just wonder where we're going. So maybe we'll connect, or you can send me an email or something like that. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Team, let's make that an info only so they all have an understanding of what the legislature
Perfect.
did. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We have a little more from Tess, I guess.
More from me. Yep.
Yeah.
I got
Hang out with us,
complacent.
Philip.
No, I'm in it to win it.
Agency, Philip. Agency.
Agency, that's right. Fun.
Great. Well, hello, Council. Again, I'm Tessa Schreiner, Sustainability Manager, and I'm here to present on the FY 2024 proposed budget for the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, or REMP Fund. So just a high-level kind of summary or background of the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program. It was started in 2000, so 23 years ago, We were the first community to do such a program and are literally 23 years ahead of neighboring communities like Breckenridge, who just passed a REMP program this year. So if residential or commercial developments choose to have excess heat loads and their outdoor commodities such as snowmelt, pool, or jacuzzi, they have an option through the REMP program to either pay a fee that is equivalent to what it would be to mitigate on site, and that goes into the REMP fund, or to mitigate with renewable energy on site. Usually that is solar PV in this community. The intended use of this program is for energy efficiency increase and renewable energy. So what REMP does? So REMP funds are allocated to 3 different kind of areas. The first is the Community Office for Resource Efficiency, which was created around the time that REMP was created. Second allocation is for the Climate Action Office operating budget, as you saw in some of our previous slides. And the third is for City of Aspen directed projects, again for energy efficiency or renewable energy increase on some of our built environment projects. So a couple of highlights for our 2023 work plan. Council approved 2 scopes of work for the Community Office for Resource Efficiency in 2023, both that address the built environment. The first was for foundational services, and this is really the bread and butter of what we know CoA to provide in service to our community. That includes assessments, rebates, and grants. Those dollars go right back into the community again to support and incentivize energy efficiency upgrades and renewable energy. A couple highlights from that is a specific partnership that CoA has had over the last 2 years with APTA and other multifamily housing units to really address energy efficiency in affordable housing, which is an important nexus for the work in our community. One fun metric is that emissions reductions in 2023 from CoA projects are 6 times higher this year than they were in 2022, mainly due to the types of projects that CoA has been investing in, but they've seen a significant increase in their impact on emissions reductions in the community. Pivoting to the second scope of work, and use of REMP funds, again, went to CoA, and this was really a fee-for-service scope of work for CoA to support Building IQ. And in this context, Building IQ is benchmarking, as council passed in April of 2022. With CoA's help, CoA was able to get 67 buildings benchmarked, and that represents 20% of our entire community's square footage. So a huge portion, 1/5 of our square footage, has been benchmarked under Building IQ, which provides really invaluable data both to the city to create better programming and to the property owners and managers themselves to understand how their building is functioning. We've achieved, through CoA's support, 98, numbers a little bit off, 98% benchmarking compliance rate, which is higher than any other community that we are aware of. The state's compliance rate is at about 50 or less. Moving on. So our proposed budget allocation for the REMP fund really mirrors what we proposed in 2023 in 2 sections, the first beginning with the foundational services. So again, this would be an allocation of funds for assessments, rebates, and grants, the large majority, again, being invested back into the community through those methods to drive down emissions in the built environment. A couple of other things that we anticipate to include in this scope with CoA is a case study development to help, again, us better understand what are we seeing in the local context for how the built environment is working, a workforce education and just research discussion, because workforce is a huge part, just instrumental in how we get efficiency work done in our community and is a challenge here. And then other things like multifamily retrofits specifically, and the development of a building performance hub, which is essentially an increased and more hands-on and helpful version of CoA's existing website. So it's just a more comprehensive and supportive space for property owners and tenants in our community to get help on their building. The second proposed allocation for REMP funding is again similar to 2023. It is a supplemental request for the Building IQ program specifically. This would be $300,000 allocated again in a fee-for-service model for CORE to continue supporting property owners in benchmarking. This cost went down from 2023, although the buildings that CORE will be supporting in benchmarking will increase a pretty significant amount. As council will remember, part of the Building IQ ordinance is phased over time, so until 2026, we will have more buildings every year benchmarking, which is more time and more one-on-one support for property owners to ensure that that this is not a burden, and they get additional kind of help and support through CORE services that's separate even from benchmarking. So a quick note, or a few quick notes on the REMP fund financials. You'll see an opening balance for 2024 at more than $2 million. This has built up over time due to increased revenues. You'll see total revenue projection for 2024 at about $876,000. A note here is that in earlier this year, council approved updates to the energy code, which expanded what would be included under the REMP program, for example, heat tape and outdoor fireplaces. And so we expect a change in this forecast once we have more information next year to understand what those increased REMP fees and how they will affect future forecasting for revenue. Oh, go ahead.
REMP fee, is that REMP fees as in what's collected outside of city contribution?
It's
county contribution?
Yes, the fee is what is paid at the time of building permit
Okay,
instead of mitigating.
got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Follow-up question on that, Tessa. Is
Yeah.
With the passage of those land use code changes that created the energy budget, don't we feel there's a legitimate argument that REMP fees collected will go down significantly?
It certainly could, and it's certainly a possibility because, to your point exactly, the cap on snow melt and changes to this year, we are not sure how that will pan out as far as what we're seeing for increased revenues for, again, heat tape and other things, but we'll have a better idea of revenue projections really in Q1 of next year, if not Q2.
Thanks.
On this chart, I was wondering if you could explain why the operating is going down significantly over the course of years and why the 2026 projection, the transfer out, is over $1 million.
Yeah, happy to chat about that. So the operating budget is what is proposed to be used for allocation. In this case, for the $1.15 million for 2024 is what's proposed to be allocated to CORE. So that $850 for foundational services and then the supplemental $300 for Building IQ. Because that is a supplemental request, that is not contemplated in future projection years for Building IQ specifically. So foundational services currently budgeted at $750,000 instead of $850,000. And we have seen CORE demonstrate efficiencies in kind of the program development over time. But a potential additional supplemental request would be contemplated in next year's budget discussion, like now. Mm-hmm. The transfers out is a great question. So some of that transfer out is to funds, for example, like the Climate Action Fund to fund some of our work, and in addition to the City of Aspen project. So for example, if I'm not mistaken, an animal shelter efficiencies at 2024 next year, so for 2024. And so that's why you see the 366, that's both of those together. And then in 2026, that larger number of transfer out is for the lumberyard. And so that is, again, dollars from REMP going to the lumberyard for, again, the energy efficiency kind of increase. It's really intended to amplify the sustainability of that project.
Got it. And it's pretty clear in the ending fund balance that we're draining a lot of money out, but then it's supposed to be sustained at the $400,000 mark, and it's okay? You're not?
Yeah. This will be as kind of our work and the needs of the community and the REMP fund itself is contemplated in future years. We'll have to address this because we have had for many years a large operating balance. It hasn't been, correct me if I'm wrong, in previous years it was utilized a bit more. We've built up a bit more of a balance, but that will be contemplated in future years as well.
While I'm at it, I guess in the previous discussion I just had with Philip about ComDeb subsidies, it was suggested the REMP fund might be a good place, but I'm not sure if I see enough in the REMP fund to be a good source for subsidies or grants.
So what happens is we provide funds to CoA, who issues the grants. So the grants help provide the acquisition of that energy efficient equipment. It does not necessarily go directly to the building fees, but it provides a subsidy, sometimes a significant subsidy, to the grantee to allow them to have the funds to address the procedural costs they may have to get permit. This is really important because there's times where the permit gets complicated, because particularly if they're in a multi-tenant building, and the compliance with HOA requirements, which trigger different kinds of things we then have to look out because the HOA is requiring other upgrades. Good example is windows. You put higher energy efficiency windows in, and the HOA is going to have a review process to all of that, and it will trigger perhaps a change in the exterior window flashing. And that flashing might have to go through a review process depending upon how the PD reads, and that takes more time. This is just the nature of the PD environment. I'm not saying that it requires going to a board or commission, but that's the nature of it. But that $800,000 that is given to them is a substantial portion of that is grant funding redistributed throughout Picken County.
I know I should know this being on the core board, but is any of that funding towards the things we just discussed, like helping locals with their permits that cost so much money to be more energy efficient? They do?
Specifically on permit costs?
Yeah.
I think they do refrigerators and light bulbs. I don't think they do permit costs.
I can't answer that question specifically, but it is designed to.
So when they file a grant application, they include those costs in it, and it's part of the consideration of that grant application.
The permit costs?
They can include that as an out-of-pocket cost in the evaluation of their grant request.
Okay.
CORE's like a clearinghouse for grants. They, not only do they help distribute the funds from the REMP fund that the city and the county contribute, but they go out and get federal grants and make money available through grants to individuals for energy efficiency, say heat pumps in an individual's house or other projects.
Exactly. So to answer the question, it's not directly like, it would have to be coupled with another energy efficiency project, but it wouldn't be, so the allocation of like REMP fund, or permit fee offset would have to be coupled with another energy efficiency or renewable energy project.
Yeah, I'm just like thinking about it a lot as far as whether we can marry a couple things to, once again, help people get to a point where they don't need to demolish their homes and are not renovating their homes because the permit fees are so excessive, in addition to obviously the other costs that are make the barrier to entry so high here. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, man.
So in summary, there's not a compass plan highlight because REMP is not a department, so it does not have a compass plan, but work plan highlights include some really significant progress in this last year of foundational services, including grants, rebates, and assessments. And in addition, support to the Building IQ program, which is a fiscally efficient way for us to get technical support through CORE. We don't have that building technical expertise, and CORE gets to work directly with property owners on both benchmarking, but then beyond benchmarking to get the support they need to better manage and potentially upgrade their building. Supplementals include a $300,000 one-time fee, again, for Building IQ program support, specifically for benchmarking support. And capital is not included in REMP for this year.
Thank you. Bill?
Thanks again, Tessa. As you know, I have a lot of challenges and reservations about Building IQ. Could you explain why we need further benchmarking to develop a basic framework for how this program is going to be implemented.
So further benchmarking, can you elaborate from?
Well, I believe what you just said is the 300,000 would primarily be used for more benchmarking.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. So this would be, how council has adopted the Building IQ ordinance, including benchmarking, is a phased approach over time for buildings that benchmark. Year one was all commercial buildings over 20,000 square feet. Year two was commercial buildings over 15,000 square feet. That was this year. Year three includes, I believe it's, I'll have to look at the chart, multifamily over 20,000 square feet. So it just increases until 2026, more buildings are included in benchmarking. Until we get to all of the buildings that were contemplated under that ordinance. And so next year, there will be even more buildings that are included under the ordinance that will be required to benchmark, and CoA will help support them in benchmarking, really walking them through meters and the whole process of uploading utility bills to Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And they're really serving as a consultant for the participants of Building IQ to give them help in understanding their building and then getting all of that information put into the benchmarking software.
Thanks. I do understand what the specifics of the work are that go into the benchmarking. What I don't understand and I can't get behind is why we're continuing to do so much work benchmarking without really an end game defined for Building IQ and what the next phase of Building IQ will be. And as I've expressed many times, I have a lot of reservations on that and a lot of concerns with that.
I'll try. Benchmarking is not just the first step, but possibly the most important step. So from my point of view, the facilitating the benchmarking for buildings and making sure that it happens and that they get on board is so that they then can see their own opportunities. From there, and I know that you have hesitancy and an uncomfortableness with going forward with some of the Building IQ stuff, but just by benchmarking and getting a clear picture of what's going on, I think is going to give us a lot of information towards what improvements can be made outside of what mandates that were contemplated, have been contemplated, or what have you. So for me, the benchmarking is really probably the biggest, best step that we're going to take in this. I got to be quite honest. I know that you've spoken about some of the challenges and pitfalls that the Building IQ program will see in the future, and I don't disagree with a bunch of those. So for me, this money on the front end of this is probably the biggest bang for our buck that we are going to achieve. And we are going to achieve it. And I think that is really giving people the tools, the understanding, and the information that can empower them going forward, regardless of what we end up with a city program. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I understand the argument. I, again, just struggle with, I'd be much more comfortable funding this. And again, I have no problem with a program that incentivizes or encourages or supports reducing the energy consumption of privately owned structures. I do have a problem with a program that mandates and requires it without anything in return. So I could be the biggest advocate ever on supporting these expenditures if I had a clearly defined implementation plan. We don't have that, and I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see what the primary opportunities of reducing energy consumption in buildings are. It's windows, it's your heating plant, it's your cooling plant, it's insulation. Am I wrong? Those.
Many of those, yeah.
Yeah. Individual buildings are going to have their unique opportunities, but I think the lion's share of energy consumption is going to be made up with the improvements on those things. So, to me, I wish I could be in an advocacy position. I'm in a defensive concern position because I just don't know what the implementation plan is.
May I add one other thing in response to that, because I think it's a really good point. Any upgrades that we would do to a building or CoA would do to a building And the first step that they would take would be to benchmark it or to monitor kind of where the building is performing now. And to your point, it may be the same conclusion, but for every assessment, whether it's a core assessment, a level 1 or a level 2 ASHRAE level assessment, the first step is always to take a current inventory of how the building is performing, and if available, multiple years to see how it changes over time. And so there is a lot of benefit in what we've heard from some of the property owners just in this benchmarking process. This is the first time for many that they're taking a holistic view at their whole building and have already found opportunities of like, oh, I didn't realize I used, I don't know, this much energy in this month or what have you. And the first time, because of the nature of our downtown core and commercial buildings, the first time these properties have had whole building aggregated energy. And so benchmarking, even alone, which maybe 50 other communities or more at this point have just passed benchmarking, not even a BPS in the United States. That is really the kind of baseline setting, regardless of what other policy is established, but just to even understand where the properties are. And in some cases, I think Energy Star portfolio manager said that on average, all of the buildings that begin benchmarking in their multi-million building portfolio across the United States see a 2 to 5% reduction in their energy consumption just by benchmarking. So there's some inherent benefit, although I totally understand that at the end game might be the same, or their conclusions of what upgrades may be needed might be the same.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I think it all you can benchmark all the buildings you want. I think in the end, it comes down to most of those items that I mentioned being the most impactful items. So my point, if I wasn't clear, was I don't know why we need to continue benchmarking until we've come up with consensus on what the end game's going to be.
I think it's important to consider, too, that in order to support council's policymaking process around whatever BPS is going to look like, that ought to be a data-driven process. And that's what the benchmarking is truly about for us. In order to present council with as thorough a picture of possible about the opportunities in our commercial and multifamily buildings, the ROI on those different opportunities, and how that needs to translate into policy that supports the 5 of your consensus position on how to approach this work, that needs to be data-driven, and that's what the benchmarking is about.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, just an analogy for me is like for gas mileage in a car, you look at your EPA standard, and then you start looking at, the benchmark starts when you start driving it. How are your driving habits? How do your winter snow tires, does your roof rack, how do all of those things affect your gas mileage? And I think that the same applies to building benchmarking. And I know that the whole idea of doing mandates is a real concern of yours, Bill, and I share that, but I think that any mandates will come through the city council. We decide what if there are any mandates, what they're going to be and how they may be funded. I think we're talking about CORE and how CORE has grants available and how federal money's available. And if we mandate that a savings of certain percentage or whatever to improve the building envelope, how we might find funding available through grants, through CORE, through REMP to help the business owner or the tenant to improve the building envelope through grants. So to say that we're mandating that you're going to improve through various means of 20% savings on energy and therefore greenhouse gas emissions, that I have no intentions of casting those costs directly to the business owners. Because as you've pointed out many times before correctly, that those are going to get passed along through to the customer that's paying for the hamburger. But if there are funds available to achieve those goals, the hamburger price doesn't have to go up because the cost to the business owner hasn't for reaching these greenhouse gas emission reductions doesn't come from their pocket. It comes from grants and other sources like CoA, funded by REMP, and any federal funds that might be available, state funds. So I think the benchmarking starts, so it points out where in the building envelope we can save the energy. And then I think it's incumbent upon us to find ways to fund those improvements.
Thanks. John?
Yeah, I so totally support building IQ. This is great work. Just to see that 20% of the total has been benchmarked so far, and we have a 95% compliance rate speaks volumes to me. That means your outreach has worked well. That means people want to save money on their energy bills. Huge success. Thanks for your hard work on this. I would be interested to know if it's not proprietary, which buildings are those 67?
So it's by name, yes, proprietary. Council voted to not release specific building information. We do have a kind of a buildings list that we work with CoA to ensure that everyone is under compliance. But how those individual buildings are performing is proprietary as decided by council. But I can share some more information on what we have for who's under the ordinance.
Great.
Cool.
Take that offline.
I had a question going back to a question going back to the previous environmental health, consumer protection, and auditing of restaurants. Is that public information? Can it be published what the environmental health score is of different restaurants?
Yeah, that information is available on the state website at this point, so you can go in and see prior inspections and performance results. And that was something that actually just went public about a year or so ago. They did that on a statewide level. There were kind of various levels of information provided in different jurisdictions, and the state finally came out with a statewide system.
I'm sorry, CJ, where was that available?
It's on the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's website.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sarah?
I'd encourage counselors to talk to your peers over at the BOCC regarding their plans for their REMP fund. Right now, they're only showing in the proposed budget a $20,000 expenditure. They have a $1.5 million transfer out, but that is most likely capital for their own projects and not for funding CoA. So I would encourage you to engage in that dialogue if that matters to you. They're showing a estimated opening fund balance in the REMP fund of $2.2 million for 2024.
I'll reach out.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thanks, team.
Thanks all.
I mean, time flies when you're having fun. 6:30, feels like we just started, that's right.
We could spend a little more time on building IQ, I think.
With that, we want to say thank you to GrassRoots as always. Tomorrow we are scheduled for our regularly scheduled meeting that starts at 5 p.m. We encourage citizen comments, so if you are interested in speaking with council about any issues not scheduled for public hearing, please join us tomorrow here at City Hall at 5 o'clock. Thank you.